what time it is. You know what time it is. You know whose time it is. You know what time it is. Matthew Mania, the time it says. You know what time it is. You know whose time it is.
Welcome to the Matthew Mania Podcast. I'm Matthew Maschler, real estate broker who watches wrestling as if it's my job. And with me, the co-host of the Matthew Mania Podcast. He is the executive vice president of Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, Neil the Heel Glazier. Hey, Neil, how are you?
Matthew, how you doing?
All right. And then, Neil, remember the other day when we had our guest in the studio, Falbak?
Falbak, yes.
We did a great episode with him. We are back in the studio with Falbak. Today we're going to do something special, something a little bit interesting. He wants to record us on his podcast. So I invited him to use our studio, and we're going to turn the studio over. It's no longer the Matthew Mania Podcast, but we will still record and my listeners can hear it. It would be better if he spoke a little bit of Spanish because he is a Spanish language influencer, a YouTuber. Falbak, if and everybody remembers, if you don't, go listen to that one and then come back and join us for this episode. But for the rest of the hour, we are on his channel, the Falbak channel. You can follow him on YouTube and Instagram at Falbak. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to count you down. Ready, Falbak? 3, 2, 1.
Muy buenas, fanáticos del wrestling, bienvenidos a un nuevo podcast. Creo que esta es la primera vez que hago un podcast en un estudio para el canal. Me encuentro en Miami, Florida, ya que el fin de semana tuve la oportunidad de estar de comentarista en el último evento de Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. Y hoy os traigo un vídeo muy especial, yo creo que os hará ilusión, ya que me encuentro con un gran fanático de la lucha libre que ha estado asistiendo durante muchos años a eventos de wrestling. Además también es promotor y tiene muchas historias que contar. Será la primera vez que hago un podcast en inglés. Como tal, no es mi primer idioma, es más bien mi tercero, ya que yo en mi país natal hablo español y vasco. El inglés lo he ido mejorando con el paso del tiempo. Pero bueno, esperemos que salga bien, así que voy a hacer el switch al inglés. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with a lifelong wrestling fan, CEO of BRCW, Matthew Maschler. How you doing, man?
Muy bien.
Enorme.
I don't speak English, but hola, me llamo Matthew.
That's good. I'm here too with the executive vice president of Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, a lifelong wrestling fan too, here with Neil the Heel.
Neil el hombre malo.
El hombre malo. Okay.
En español,
Neil el hombre malo.
Gracias.
Thank you. Okay, guys. So it is a pleasure to be here with you in my channel. You've been going to wrestling shows for years and years.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I want to know your story, where you grew up, and what was your first memory of wrestling?
Well, I grew up in Staten Island, New York, and I was born in 1972. So I was probably about 5 or 6 years old when Bob Backlund became the WWF champion, and I was watching wrestling in the late 70s and early 80s with my family. Chief Jay and Jules Strongbow, Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans. I probably stopped watching wrestling in 1987. I was about 15 years old. And then I have a little gap, and I talk about that a lot on my podcast. Started watching wrestling again in 2011 with my children. The reason I mention that gap right now is in 2011, when I was watching wrestling with my children, I had not watched in so long. I had missed the whole Attitude Era, Shawn Michaels. I heard of, obviously, Stone Cold and Goldberg and The Undertaker, obviously, but I missed all of Undertaker. I missed all of Yokozuna. And if in 2011, if you would have said The Rock, I would have thought you were talking about The Rock, the magnificent Don Morocco, because when I was watching wrestling, he was The Rock.
So Don Morocco was built as The Rock.
It wasn't like the way Dwayne Johnson is billed as The Rock, but he was The Rock. He was the magnificent Don Morocco. It was a nickname. It was a nickname for him. It wasn't like an alias name for him.
Okay.
But yeah, he was The Rock, the magnificent Don Morocco.
So growing up, what kind of wrestling you watch? WWF,
we watched
territorial wrestling, independent.
We watched WWF wrestling.
Okay.
We would get the magazines because we were aware there were other companies and promotions out there because the villains tended to cycle through. So if you so we knew of Mil Mascaras, right? I'm sure we saw him a few times, but not
Mil Máscaras.
Mil Máscaras.
Okay.
Do you
Yeah,
know?
Yeah, I know him. Yeah, he was big in Mexico, but he wrestled in the States too.
Yeah. So we definitely saw Mil Máscaras. I remember my kid brother had he would take the full page picture out of the magazine, hang pictures of the wrestlers on the wall. Mm-hmm. So I remember Mil Máscaras' picture being hung on the wall, and he was someone we knew about. We didn't see him all that often. We saw wrestlers like Junkyard Dog, Special Delivery Jones, Afasika the Wild Samoans, Chief Jay and Jules Strongbow. I kind of wanted to be Jay Strongbow, right? Because then I'd be with Chief Jules Strongbow. They were one of my favorites, Afasika the Wild Samoans, Bob Backlund. Andre the Giant was a heel. Was a bad guy, and I'm sure later in his career, he was a good guy because you're applauding for him, right? But a vicious heel. Jimmy Snuka was a vicious heel. Obviously, by 1985, and that first WrestleMania, he'd been face because you have to cheer for him, right?
So going back, do you remember the first wrestling show you ever attended? When you were young?
No, it's hard to remember the first when you're a little kid. Mm-hmm. But I was going to shows in Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Your father was a wrestling fan?
My father worked on Wall Street, and he just liked everything. He liked to, go with the guys and whatever was popular at the time. And when Bob Backlund became champion, they were really marketing wrestling to a younger audience. Mm-hmm. And then being on Wall Street and trying to know everybody and getting tickets, I'm sure he took us, but also took whether it was clients, customers, and he was entertaining because he was always entertaining to try to make those connections. Wall Street back then, it wasn't the internet, right? So if you needed to find someone to sell a stock to or buy a stock from, you had to know the players and you had to get them to choose you. And one of the ways you would do that is hang out in bars and buy them drinks or take them to ball games or take them to a wrestling show. So if he was trying to get in, I'm sure a lot of it was if he was trying to get in good with someone and they had kids. Oh, I'm taking my kids to the wrestling. Why don't you come with me? Mm-hmm. And that was his way of getting in with people.
Okay.
So I'm sure there was a lot of that going on. I didn't really know it at the time.
So at your time in the late 70s, early 80s, did you saw a lot of kids in the crowd, or it was mainly an adult product?
It was. You saw a transformation. Mm-hmm. From an adult product, the Bruno Sammartino fans, the old timers smoking their cigarettes.
So Bruno Sammartino's time was like an adult product, right? Like
he was
18.
He was champion throughout most of the 70s. Mm-hmm. He had 2 championship runs, but for the predominant, from the late 60s to early, to 77, he was a champion. Mm-hmm. They used to say he sold out Madison Square Garden more often than any other entertainer, other than the Knicks and Rangers. But he was a big star. But then Bob Backlund, again, younger, attracting the younger audience, and that was the transition to get to that first WrestleMania in 1985, which. It was marketed to adults, but there were a lot of kids there. I'm trying to answer your question. It was marketed to adults. You had Muhammad Ali as the special guest referee. Mm-hmm. You had Liberace as the timekeeper. He was dancing around with the Rockettes. You had Billy Martin from the Yankees. Mr. T, obviously. Mr. T was to get the kids in there. Mm-hmm. He was very popular in television action star. You
got Cyndi Lauper. You got Wendy Richter, Fabulous Moolah.
Ray Charles.
Ray Charles.
You got the Andre the Giant with the $15,000
the duffel bag filled with money.
That's it.
Well, the duffel was that WrestleMania 3 or?
No, it was WrestleMania 1.
That was WrestleMania 1. So you were there on March 31st, 1985, Madison Square Garden, New York City. 20,000 in the arena. Tell me about that experience, because the first ever WrestleMania is really important for the business, because Vince McMahon just put it all. I remember that he, in an interview, he said that the success of WWF depended on WrestleMania.
Yeah.
If it went well, it was well. But if it went bad, the company would probably be in a bad position.
Right. And that's not something that the public would have known or even cared about. It was, right, like that's him looking back on what it was. It was a phenomenon. It was all anybody could talk about. If you remember not right now in wrestling, but do you remember when the monthly pay-per-views, like every Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown led to these monthly pay-per-views? It almost seemed like that's what was going on for a few years. It was just like every show, every house show, every television show was getting to WrestleMania. Like they do it now, right? That road to WrestleMania from the Royal Rumble.
Yep.
But it wasn't organized that way. It was a pop cultural phenomenon. It was all anybody was talking about in school. It was all anybody was talking about anywhere because it was from so many different disciplines. Having Muhammad Ali and Mr. T, right? Like it was all anybody could talk to on TV, on the news, on Saturday Night Live. You saw Hulk Hogan and Mean Gene Okerlund, and it was just this thing that everything was. It was the biggest event in the world, more than any Super Bowl or World Series, and it was just this thing that was all over TV. All anybody was talking about, and getting to that first WrestleMania.
And that's where WWE really became sports entertainment and not pro wrestling, or
maybe, but everything you saw in WrestleMania you'd seen before. I mean, later when it was WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant,
Pontiac Silverdome,
in the Silverdome, and it was supposed to be the first time they ever met.
Yeah.
Well, they met in 1983.
Have you seen a match between Hogan and Andre before the WrestleMania one?
In 1983, in Shea Stadium.
In 83, where?
Yeah, Shea Stadium. Two years before the first WrestleMania. So when WrestleMania 3 came out and they were saying that it was going to be the first time they ever met, I'm like, no, they met. Like we saw that, but you didn't have the internet. You couldn't fact check. Neil's looking to chime in here.
Just speaking of WrestleMania, I want to ask Falbak, do you know what the original name was going to be for WrestleMania?
Man, I did a WrestleMania 1 retro review for my channel, but it was so many info that right now I don't remember what was the name, but I know it was like a surreal name.
Do you know?
No.
The Colossal Tussle.
The Colossal Tussle.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the Colossal Tussle 42 in New Orleans?
That'd be
Buy
great.
tickets.
I can't imagine you wearing Colossal Tussle shirts.
That's a terrible name.
That's terrible, yeah.
And you know what's interesting, when I started watching wrestling with the kids, and it was just on a lark, my wife was away, and I said those words, and the kids didn't know what it meant. But it just sounded, the way it connects, the way it sounded, we're going to order Papa John's and WrestleMania on pay-per-view, and like all those words made the kids go, what is that? Like, WrestleMania, it just sounds so good,
Yeah, so growing up in New York City, you mainly went to Madison Square Garden shows?
Madison Square Garden. They also had, in Long Island, you had Nassau Coliseum, and not far. And then in New Jersey, you had the Brendan Byrne Arena.
And the Barclays Center? Or
that wasn't even, that was built in the last few years.
Yeah, but I think the home of WWE, well, like the Mecca was Madison Square Garden, right?
The Garden. But they did plenty of shows in New Jersey at the Brendan Byrne and in Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, which I want to get to WrestleMania 2. I know you wanted to talk a lot about WrestleMania 1.
Okay, yeah, so you went to WrestleMania 2?
Yeah, so WrestleMania 2 was in Nassau Coliseum.
No, it was in 3 different cities, right?
Yes, that's what
the first one was in Nassau Coliseum, the second one in Rosemont, Oregon, and the third one was in the Memorial Sports Arena, one in Chicago, one in LA.
Right. So now...
And the other one was in New York.
No, when you say the first one, the second one, this was the same time. It was. If you weren't in any of these three places, if you were watching it somewhere else, you were watching it live in New York, and that's what I watched. Mr. T versus Rowdy Piper in a boxing match. Then it went to Chicago, and then it went to LA in the same night.
So in the same building, you could watch through the monitor the Chicago show and the LA show.
Yeah. After the matches in Nassau Coliseum, we had to watch on the screen, and it's 1986. It's not a very big screen. It's not a very clear screen. We were watching in the screen.
Only one big screen.
One big screen in the center,
hanging from the ceiling. And that's where we watched the part from Chicago, the part from LA. The technology involved in this had to be so rudimentary. There's no way this should have worked.
Yeah.
And it did.
And it was really criticized in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And I think Vince McMahon never did again a 3-city 1-8 show.
It's insane.
It's insane, yeah.
But now if you didn't live in one of those cities, how did you watch? There was one venue in every metropolitan area that had the feed. And you would go to that venue, buy a ticket, sit there with your popcorn and soda, and watch on a screen.
Okay. So the show was probably 6 hours, because it would be really long, right?
It was 2 or 3 matches in each place. It was
Only 2 or 3 matches in each.
It was about
And
3 hours.
And in Nassau Coliseum, it was just about that one boxing match around Roddy Piper. But so let me fast forward now to WrestleMania 3.
Okay.
So that's at the Pontiac Silverdome.
1987.
Yeah. So for us to watch it, we went to a venue in New York City called the Felt Forum.
Excuse me. Was there really 93,000 people or no?
I don't believe anything WWE says about anything.
Okay.
They're compulsive liars. So anyway, to watch it, we went to a venue in New York City called the Felt Forum, which was part of the Madison Square Garden complex, and it was almost like a large movie theater. Sometimes for garden shows, when they oversold, for a live event, they would actually sell tickets in the Felt Forum for people to watch on a screen what was going on in the garden. But we watched WrestleMania 3 in this movie theater environment, again, with our popcorn and soda, watching on a screen what was going on at WrestleMania 3, because there's no other way to get it. They didn't have cable back then. They didn't have satellite television back then.
So back in the day, the only way to watch wrestling, and if you weren't going to the venue, you gotta watch it like in a movie theater.
Like in a movie theater.
Okay.
And eventually what I think most people did was renting the videotape from a video rental shop.
Yep.
That's probably what most people did for WrestleMania 1. So well after it came out, if it was in Blockbuster Video or the video rental store.
But if I'm not mistaken, I think WrestleMania 1 was in closed circuit television.
So
the
that's
only way you could watch was in a theater, but I think WrestleMania 2, you could order it in a pay-per-view.
No.
Or no?
No.
No?
WrestleMania 2 was still the closed circuit. WrestleMania 3 was still closed circuit.
And when did they start doing the pay-per-views?
I'd have to look that up.
Okay, yeah, because in 1987, you just quit watching wrestling, right?
I probably stopped watching wrestling.
Do you remember the last show you saw?
No, I remember not liking the Ultimate Warrior or Sting. I liked Hulk Hogan and I liked the people I liked. Back in Staten Island, Macho Man didn't live far from us, and we used to see him at the gym sometimes. We used to see Miss Elizabeth as well. I want to talk about another favorite was George the Animal Steel.
Yeah. The hairy guy.
Hairy guy. Now, when I was watching, there were two. It's the same person, but there were 2 different characters. When I was watching wrestling, George the Animal Steel was a monster heel, vicious, biting that turnbuckle and with the green tongue. He wasn't the lovable monster. That character came later. That lovable monster that was in love with Miss Elizabeth and this and that. It was like a teddy bear, but still gross and green and biting the turnbuckle. But before that, he'd have the razor blades or he'd have the brass knuckles, and he was just a creature. So that was an interesting concept. When you watched it kind of become more PG and a little bit more polished, it was amazing to see all these changes over the years. But Macho Man lived not far from us, and in the middle of the afternoon, they would close the gyms, give him some private time to work out, and he drove in real life. He drove this like really nice fancy car, and he was that character. He was that character at the gym and in real life. Again, I'm a preteen, but seeing him out there just
okay. So speaking about WrestleMania 3, the main event, Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant. There's been a lot of urban legends like Andre was 15 years undefeated. He was never body slammed. That was fake, obviously.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, for that time, 1987, was the match really that big, that iconic? They were talking about it in all the newspapers, in the TV.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Huge.
It was really that big, right?
It was really that
huge.
big. And then let me rewind a little bit.
I think they promoted really good, right?
The promotion was amazing.
Was amazing, yeah.
I want to go back in time a little bit. I want to go to the end of Bob Backlund's championship reign when he lost to the Iron Sheik. So we're talking about Cold War era, Ronald Reagan and Russia, and on the news, nuclear bomb threats and drills in school, and the Iron Sheik was such a massive villain.
Nuclear heat.
And it all seemed tied together. You couldn't differentiate the wrestling storyline with the evening news. That's how, when you say how big was it, that's how big it was.
And in the 80s, the kayfabe or the The business was more protected.
Yeah.
There are stories about Ric Flair going to wrestle Jack Veneno. I think he was in Dominican Republic, sorry.
Yeah.
And the police had to escort Ric Flair because people really wanted to kill him. The heels in the 80s and in the 70s were really hated.
It happened in Madison Square Garden. You would see, because they didn't have great parking, and you'd see the police had to like get these people out of there. It was not the safest place to be. These wrestling shows, but when Bob Backlund lost to the Iron Sheik, it almost when I say it felt real. Like, it felt real with all the news, with all the doom and gloom.
And he was champion for 6 years, right?
Yeah. And it was like, we were depressed. We were depressed and we were scared.
Yeah.
And we'd go to school and like...
Oh my God, the Iron Sheik is the champion.
Yeah, there was like a cloud. And when Hulk Hogan kind of comes onto the scene and does his Real American gimmick, and you're in the crowd and they're waving American flags, it was real. Not that the wrestling, not that, we're talking about the in-ring wrestling. Not talking about the in-ring wrestling. It was just the politics and the news and the excitement of the day. And we needed a superhero.
It was the timing, right?
Yeah.
Because the Iron Sheik was Iranian, I think so. Massively good. And then you have Hulk Hogan, big, blonde, muscular, American guy, patriotic. So yeah, people really fell in love with him, right?
In 79 and 80, you had the hostages in Iran, right? The
American hostages
in Iran.
Yeah. I think they went to the American embassy, right?
Yeah. So right, they were returned. They were returned once Reagan was president. So they were returned at the beginning of 1980, right? So it's 1983. Right, and you had the whole oil shortages and stuff. Like, it was real. It was on the pulse of policy. It was, and when I say it was real, it wasn't. I'm not talking about the in-ring action, which we thought was real, but just the storyline. It's ripped from the headlines, and it was just part of the culture and part of the American way of life. And when Hulk Hogan came and defeated the Iron Sheik, you almost felt like America was strong again.
Yeah.
Like it meant everything to everyone.
Yeah. Vince probably thought that's such good shit, right?
Such good shit. It's why he did it over and over again. It's why he did it with Rusev.
Yeah.
And
Muhammad Hassan and all those heel anti-America Nikolai Volkov, the Bolsheviks.
Nikolai Volkov.
Yeah.
But it was I don't know what year it was, right around WrestleMania when WrestleMania was in California. So was that like 2015, 2016? Rusev was the Bulgarian Brute, but then they gave him that award from Russia. And they put pictures of Putin on the screen, and they gave Rusev a medal as if Putin gave Rusev the medal.
Man, I remember when Monday Night Raw, I think it was late 2014, Rusev had a rivalry with the Big Show.
Yeah.
And Rusev was going to pull like the American flag. And there was some Marine in first row. And he jumped the barricade. And he was going to go to Rusev just straight to attack him. But, the security guys just grabbed him. But yeah, that shit was real.
And we go back to WrestleMania 3, Nikolai Volkov was singing the Russian national anthem, Pontiac Silverdome, 93,000 people.
Man, I freaking love the alliance between Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov.
Nikolai Volkov, right?
Russian and Iranian, yeah.
And Iron Sheik was like, Iran number one, Russia number one, right?
America spit.
but Nikolai Volkov starts singing the Russian national anthem, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan comes in with a 2x4. I'm not letting him sing that song here. And that was 87. It's 40 years ago. And when you see Hacksaw, he's got the American flag and the 2x4, and he's still fighting Russians. And that's why, like, when you look at Rusev was coming in on a tank to fight John Cena, the American.
The entrance was amazing.
It's like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same stories. It's the same, politics.
So we go forward. 1987. You quit watching wrestling. So you missed the New Generation era, the Attitude era, the Ruthless Aggression era, and part of the PG era.
Yeah.
So you missed Probably you heard about Stone Cold, The Rock, all those big guys, but you didn't watch the programming.
And if I watched it, I saw a clip of it, it looked ridiculous to me.
Why?
Because, well, like Stone Cold squirting beer at everyone. And
well, I think, in the Attitude Era, the product was very different from your era in the 80s, right?
Like one of my friends invited me over to watch WrestleMania, and I'm watching beer trucks, beer people and crushing cars, and I'm like, I don't know what I couldn't relate to this. Like, what is that? Like,
it was more like a TV show than a
I know what
pure
it was.
wrestling.
I know what it was, but
okay. So then, going straight forward, 2011, you started watching wrestling again.
Miz Cena.
Okay.
Miz Cena in Atlanta. Yeah.
So you went to Atlanta to see WrestleMania?
I watched it on pay-per-view.
You watched it on paper.
I had to figure out how to get a pay-per-view. And the kids would just ask me questions like, "Who's that?" And I'm just getting it from the announcers. I try to tell them. They're 7 years old, but you can't tell them. Well, if you just listen, they'll tell you everything you need to know. Who's that? That's the Miz. Is he any good? I'm like, he's awesome. Right? If you don't know the Miz, but and all you know is 30 seconds in, and you watch his entrance. Right, you know two things: he's the Miz, and he's awesome.
Yeah,
right. So
next year, WrestleMania 80.
And who's that? That's John Cena. Is he any good? Well, he has to be good if he has a title match at WrestleMania, right? Like, and then if you remember the match, the mixed tag with John Morrison and Snooki.
Yep.
So, Snooki comes in at the end, does a little cartwheel, pins Kelly. I think it was Kelly. Yes, my daughter Lindsay, 7 years old. Who's your favorite wrestler? Snooki.
And he was a celebrity. She was a celebrity.
That's what we're watching.
Okay, so next year was WrestleMania 80. Sorry? No.
28.
28, sorry.
28 in Miami.
Miami, yeah.
We live 45 minutes away, Boca Raton, Florida.
After 2011, you went to every WrestleMania, every single year.
So we watched it. We watched it all year because WrestleMania 27 ends with The Rock in Cena's face. So in Miami, once in a lifetime, the kids are like, "Can we go?" We're like, "Yeah." So we're watching all year. I called my Marlins rep because Marlins used to play in that stadium. And I got a suite because I wasn't sure what the weather would be like, and I didn't know what the crowd would be like. I'm going to be there with my kids. So then I got to I got a suite. Now I got to find 15 people that like wrestling. So I invited my dad, who used to take me, and I invited my wife's dad, who likes wrestling, and my wife's stepbrother was in town, so I had one of my nephews and just my friend Stuart, and some of his friends.
Do you remember in which part of the venue you were in WrestleMania 20?
So we had a suite, and it was probably right there at the 50-yard line.
Okay.
I was a big Sheamus fan, and I think it's because he resonated with me because he kind of reminded me of Roddy Piper, even though Piper was Scottish and Sheamus was Irish. But, the big muscle-bound, like an 80s wrestler. I think he was the most like an 80s wrestler, and I think that's what resonated with me. And
so you were rooting for him?
Yeah, I loved Sheamus, and I hated Daniel Bryan because I don't like the heels. And Daniel Bryan was the heavyweight championship. He cashed in. He won it from a guy that was unconscious.
I think he won it from the Big Show.
From Big Show.
In TLC 2011.
But Big Show was unconscious. Like, there was no consent. How do you have a match when someone's unconscious? I didn't get it. He had the Money in the Bank. Okay, but you can't have a match against someone who's unconscious. The guy's unconscious. You pin him. You didn't beat him. He was unconscious. You win the battle. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand it. So I don't like cheaters, So when he got kicked in the face and, lost his belt in 8 seconds, I'm like, yeah, he deserved it. He didn't deserve the belt in the first place. He shouldn't have been able to hold it for 8 seconds. Of course he lost it that quick. So I was very happy.
Okay, that's cool. And do you remember other matches in the night, like Cena Rock, Taker?
Cena Rock was good. I didn't know who Taker and Triple H were, but the Usos were good because I liked Afonseca, the Wild Samoans. So the Usos were like part of that Samoan family. So I was a big fan of them. They were in like the pre-show a little bit. But you said, Triple H and The Undertaker, they weren't in the story we were watching for a year. They weren't in Raw and SmackDown.
No, they were part-time wrestlers.
Yes.
But they had their story from WrestleMania 27, where The Undertaker won by the Hell's Gate, but he was really tired, and he had to get out of the arena with a stretcher.
Yeah, it didn't resonate with me because I didn't know who he was, and the streak wasn't important.
So you didn't really care about The Undertaker on the streak?
Well, not in Miami at WrestleMania 28. I took the kids to the merchandise stand and in the bathroom.
Come on, man. One of the biggest matches in wrestling history. Hell in a Cell match.
I took the kids to the bathroom. Plus, it was going to be a little violent. Because I thought it would be a little violent, so I especially for my daughter. So I took them to the merchandise stand in the bathroom. But I will tell you a funny story. I'm going to go from that to like something that makes me happy. In the suite next to us, there was like a lady with a 2-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. The 2-year-old kid was crying. And I had brought with me, you ever go to the shooting range and you get the ear protection, those earpieces. So I brought 2 small size and 2 adult size of these earmuffs, ear protection, because I didn't know how loud the show would be, and I was nervous about my kids. Mine were fine, but this little 2-year-old next door, so I kind of knocked on the window that separated the 2 suites, and I showed the lady the earmuffs and would she want them. So she was happy about it. So I go around and give the lady the earmuffs, and she puts them on the kid. And the kid goes from crying to quiet to happy to asleep. So when WrestleMania was over, she goes to give it back and say thank you. And I realized it was Jennifer Hudson.
Oh, wow.
The singer. And her husband was in WrestleMania. So I got a picture with, what was his name? Neil, do you remember his name? He was the lawyer. David Otunga. Yeah. There was the Survivor Series match between David Otunga, Team Teddy versus Team Johnny in the Survivor Series match, and that was very exciting. I really liked the Team Teddy versus Team Johnny Survivor Series match. And then I got a picture with David Otunga. So fast forward, I'm always meeting wrestlers and whatnot, but like the very first time, I got this great picture with my kids and David Otunga. So while that Triple H Shawn Michaels in a cell match didn't resonate with us. The Team Teddy versus Johnny's Survivor Series match. David Otunga. We like David Otunga.
Okay.
Because he was like a lawyer, Harvard-educated lawyer. Now
but
he's a wrestler.
Didn't watch. So the match was like 30 minutes. You didn't watch anything about the match, the Hell in a Cell match.
No, we went to the merchandise stand.
Okay. I think that's really heart attack for the hardcore wrestling fans.
The Team Teddy, Team Johnny was you asked me what match I liked. I like Team Teddy and meeting David Otunga.
Okay, so
the next year,
you went to WrestleMania 29, MetLife Stadium, New York City.
Yeah, so because WrestleMania 27 ends in Miami. Can we go? It's Miami. It's our hometown, but we're from New York, New Jersey. So. Right? So Roxina is gonna once in a lifetime. They're gonna do it again.
Twice in a lifetime.
Doing it again next year, right? So because we're from New York, New Jersey, we went, and my older brother was gonna come with us, and he didn't. But like Stuart put a bunch of guys together, so we went with this big group and tailgated the parking lot. It was a lot of fun, and now I'm a little bit more interested in the Undertaker streak.
Okay.
Because, right, like he, knowing that he successfully defended his streak the year before, and he's going in against CM Punk, and CM Punk's got the live band that played him out, and he's got Paul Heyman, and I'm thinking, this is going to be it.
The match was really great.
I was thinking, I'm still new to this, right? I'm not wise to what's going on.
It was the last defense of the streak.
I'm thinking that like CM Punk's going to take this guy. He's old. You got the live band.
So the Undertaker was never your favorite, right?
So I thought I was convinced that CM Punk was going to end the streak, and I think Undertaker going over is what made me truly understand wrestling. Like I understand what was happening. Like it's not about the hype, and it's not about who's the better wrestler.
It's about the story.
It's about the story.
Always is the story.
And the streak was so precious. So the next year it's in New Orleans. And David says.
So you went to WrestleMania 32, right?
Yes, WrestleMania 32. David.
So you watched the day the streak was broken.
Yeah,
6th April 2014.
Yeah.
Mercedes-Benz Superdome.
It means a lot to you.
Yeah, because he's my favorite wrestler of all time. So I have that date in my mind. And it was really hard to see. 3 5s, 1 2 3. Streak is broken. 21-1.
So,
what was the emotion, the reaction in the arena? Surrounding the people around you, how are they reacting?
So I'll tell you. So again, we went to Miami because it was local, and we went to MetLife because we're from there and we had friends there. And then, New Orleans, and David's like, "Can we go?" I'm like, "Well, we're not like from New Orleans." He goes, "Is it far?" Well, it's not as far as MetLife. It's a quick flight, so we decided to go. But because they fooled me last year with a In Living Color live band playing CM Punk out, and Paul Heyman, promoting CM Punk, and so now with Brock Lesnar and Undertaker and Paul Heyman, like I'm not believing Paul Heyman, right? Fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I didn't believe a word Paul Heyman said promoting Brock Lesnar. Just the whole time he was, I'm like, you're not going to fool me again. Like, I went through it last year. I believed you. You lied to me. I gave Paul Heyman no credibility, which means I totally underestimated Brock Lesnar. And I went into that match thinking this jacked guy who should kill an old man is going to lose to an old man. Right? No matter how much Paul Heyman says it's a promise, right? Not a spoiler, a promise. So I went in, I wasn't expecting anything.
Okay,
right?
and then when you saw the 21-1,
when it happened,
the reaction in the arena.
When it happened, you almost didn't believe it.
Yeah. Everyone in shock, right?
You almost thought it was a mistake. Mm-hmm. The whole arena went silent. And when he said the 21-1, that didn't come up right away.
Yeah, it was like 30 seconds or 1 minute of confusion.
It was,
and then it was, okay, the winner of the match, Brock Lesnar, 21-1.
The match ended, and usually match ends and people, either happy or sad. The match ended, and nobody said a word. Nobody believed that the match was over. And felt like an eternity with no words.
Yeah, I feel you.
And then you saw the 21-1 graphic, and you knew that the streak was over.
Crazy.
And there was nothing to say or do. It was just
silence.
Over.
Crazy. So next year, WrestleMania 31, Levi's Stadium. I think it was in LA, right?
So David says, could we go? And I'm like, well, we went to Miami because we live in Miami. We went to MetLife. We were from MetLife. New Orleans, it's not that far. California's far. But Dad, we go every year. I go, but David, like, you're watching the whole thing on the screen in New Orleans. Like, I'm using binoculars. You can't give a kid these days binoculars. He's watching it on the screen. I'm like, I'm not going all the way to fucking California for you to watch it on the screen, watch it on TV with no commentary. But Dad, we go every year. So the four of us go to California. We did the on-location travel package.
How was the experience in the on-location travel package?
Well, it wasn't on location. It was WWE travel package. It was in their. Okay. It was their internal company.
But what does it include?
So it included Hall of Fame, WrestleMania, Raw, a couple of sessions of access, a VIP brunch, some meet and greets, and I didn't like it because like you didn't have the ability to pick your seat. And then there's different events, but I thought, well, if there's different events at different venues, how am I going to know when they go on sale? So I thought it would be easier to do it this way. And you get a seat in the first 4 rows.
The first 4 rows.
First 4 rows, and I think it was about $3,000 or $3,500.
Okay.
Seat in the first 4 rows
per night.
No, for the package. It was a hotel, a seat to Hall of Fame. WrestleMania, Monday Night Raw.
It was everything for $3,000.
What
was it? Was NXT then? Takeover
so there was a thing called NXT in existence. It wasn't part of.
Oh, that's when it was part of Access.
Well, no, yeah. In New Orleans, we saw NXT at Access. That's the first time I saw NXT, and it was just there. And I was online to meet Paige and get an autograph, but David was watching these wrestlers, and he's standing on like the barricade and just watching these wrestlers, absorbing it all. And we saw like this like ridiculous guy like call his opponent SAWFT soft, and I'm thinking I was laughing so much that the guys spelled soft SAWFT. I look back at it now, it was Enzo and Cass versus the Vaudevillains, but we didn't know who anybody was. We met at Access. We met like. The Ascension, they were the tag team champions, so we met them, and Bo Dallas was the men's tag team. So that was in New Orleans. So in California, on I don't know if it was Friday night or Saturday night. You got to remember at this time, SmackDown was taped on Tuesdays for a Friday night show, possibly a Thursday night show, or possibly I don't think it was live yet. Saturday night was Hall of Fame. So Saturday night after Hall of Fame. At 11 o'clock at night, there was a show that you could buy tickets for called NXT, and it was at the San Bernardino Community College. It wasn't part of the travel package. It was this other show.
So before that, I want to ask you, what was the price of all the whole package? You know, the hotel, the tickets,
hotel, Now, I bought a package of 4. It was one room.
Okay.
For the 4 of us. And on the decision if I should go or not, I'm like, I don't want the 4 of us in one room. I want my own room. Get David his own room. I realized I can give the room to Stuart and Gus, and I can take my own room in whatever hotel I want. So the one hotel that the 4 of us had to share, I think Friday to Tuesday.
You have Raw, SmackDown,
Not SmackDown.
Not okay, SmackDown. Raw, WrestleMania?
You had Hall of Fame Saturday night.
Yeah.
WrestleMania Sunday. Monday Night Raw.
First row.
First 4 rows.
Okay.
And then you had at least 2 VIP access sessions, a brunch, I think was with the Usos, and then there was another meet and greet with Rusev and Wade Barrett. It's possible they didn't tell us who it was with, but there was a superstar brunch, at least one superstar brunch. There was another meet and greet, 2 sessions of access with VIP, and those 3 shows in the hotel room.
And what was the price of it?
That was $3,500 per ticket.
Okay, per ticket.
It's $3,500 now just to have brunch with Grayson Waller.
Literally.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
So the difference in the price is crazy because nowadays, if you want to have that experience, it's like 30K, 40K easily. It would be. With everything, with the hotel, first row tickets.
I think it might have been the first 5 rows. So I hemmed and hawed for days. When you say, like even with the travel package department, by the last year, the travel package department, this stuff sold out in minutes. It was days that I considered this. And I finally said, well, if I'm not flying all the way to California just to watch it on a screen or to watch it with binoculars. And so I'll sit in the first 5 rows. It was an extravagance. But because now I needed 4 tickets, so that would be $14,000. So I needed 4 tickets, but it was extravagance. But I'm like, you know what? I'm worth it. And I'm like, going to California all this way, and I don't want to watch on TV. Someone's got to sit there. So I pulled the trigger, and they put me in the 4th row. And then about a month before, they told me they gave me an upgrade to 3rd row. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. WrestleMania was amazing. Monday Night Raw the next day was amazing.
Cool.
Access was cool. We met so many people. But I didn't want to stay at the hotel that they signed us. I want to stay at a nice hotel. I'm a bit of a hotel snob. So there was no like Ritz-Carlton in San Jose. So I stayed at the Fairmont. Mm-hmm. So we get to we land. I bought tickets to San Francisco, and then I realized that the hotel and the shows were nowhere near San Francisco. So I changed my flight to San Jose. Funny story, the family and I did a vacation to Costa Rica, and that airport was also San Jose. So I was very confused. I was going to San Jose in April and in June, but 2 different San Joses. So I get to we land in the airport in San Jose, and meet Brutus the Barber Beefcake, like near the luggage station. So I take a picture with him and my son. I didn't realize that he was there to work at WrestleCon. I'd never heard of WrestleCon, but he was basically going to spend 3 days signing autographs for people for money because that's his job. And when I realized that a couple years later, I'm like, oh, I owe that guy money because I feel like I stole something from him.
He's getting paid now.
Yeah, we're good now. So we get to the hotel, and I'm checking in, and my son's like, Dad. And I'm like, give me a minute. I'm talking to the lady checking this. He goes, no, Dad, I got to talk to you. What? He goes, look over there. It's Stardust. Like, Stardust?
Oh, Cody Rhodes.
Well, Cody was dead. It was Stardust.
Full
makeup.
Man, for me, that's one of the cringiest and worst wrestling gimmicks ever.
Worse?
Fucking hate it.
If you grew up with your brother as Goldust and your father...
But the Stardust was like a cheap, ugly version of wannabe Goldust. It was not cool. Stardust was not. Cody was not cool with the gimmick. For me, it was horrible.
I thought it was amazing.
Come on.
And I met him. I met him as Stardust. And David has an autograph book from WrestleMania 30. I could talk about that for days. So
nowadays you prefer Stardust than Cody Rhodes.
So David says, "Hey Stardust, can you sign my book?" I was thinking, because Stardust isn't in the book, it's the WrestleMania program from WrestleMania 30. He goes, I was thinking, since Cody's dead, you could just sign over his name. So Stardust takes the book and crosses off Cody, writes Cody's dead, and walks away. But he was cool. But by the way, it wasn't just Stardust. Dustin Reynolds and Dusty Rhodes, all right there in the hotel next to me. I got a picture with Dusty. I said to Dusty, I go, hey, Dusty, when are you going to join the boys? You could be like Moondust. And he goes, oh, maybe one day. And
months later, he passed away.
But
yeah.
but like Cody got to wrestle with his brother and his dad. Him and his brother got to like if they won, Dusty gets to keep his job. I mean, like everybody.
They even won the tag team championship.
Yeah, everybody was shitting on Stardust. I thought.
No, I think
in 2018 he got the match against Steve Amell.
Initially, the gimmick was fun because I think it started in 2013. They won the tag team championship. They had a great rivalry with the Shield.
Yeah.
But going forward, 2015, 2016, people were really tired of that gimmick.
Maybe.
I really felt that Cody didn't like it too. And that's the reason he left WWE in 2016.
I think the reason he left is he was just treated as a mid-carder, whether he was Stardust or Cody's mustache. Do you remember Cody's mustache?
Yeah, I remember.
I started a Cody's mustache chant once.
Okay, nice, cool photo with Cody.
Yeah, I got some good ones. I was trying to think if I have Stardust. But we So now I'm trying to say NXT was this midnight show. I had tickets for it, but we leave. I don't know if we left Access on Friday night or left Hall of Fame, but I think it was late. It was about 11 o'clock at night. David was exhausted. He couldn't stay up for it. So Stuart and Gus were going. They never heard of NXT, but I had the tickets, and I found this random couple that I gave the tickets to, and I explained to them, and I explained to Stuart. I'm like, go see this show. I would go, but my son's sleeping. It is going to be the best wrestling show you've ever seen in your life. And there's no video. There's no official video of it. There's clips of it, but it was huge. It was Bayley's breakout show, because we'd seen Bayley tons of times in Florida, but it was Bayley's first big show because she's from the Bay Area, and the fans went nuts for her. Stephanie McMahon was there. I mean, people were talking about this show the rest of the weekend, but it wasn't included in the travel package. The following year in Dallas, it was included in the travel package, but it was in the convention center on Thursday night, Friday night SmackDown, Saturday Hall of Fame, Sunday Night Mania, Monday Night Raw. It was the following year in Dallas. It was 5 nights, and I was in the front row. So
cool.
For 5 nights,
first row,
front row, 5 nights, including WrestleMania.
How was the experience in first row?
Kofi Kingston looks at me and goes, first row. And he knew me by then. But and talking to the refs, and we watched Shane go off the cage over the Undertaker.
Crazy. Did you feel the
was
impact?
insane. I mean, third row in California was great. I mean, it was like, even though it was a huge football stadium, it was like watching these people right in front of me. You could see their eyes. In the Battle Royal, you could see everybody in the Battle Royal. Like, California was great, but it was, again, we were talking about $3,500 times 4 tickets for the entire weekend, all the tickets for everything. I didn't buy. I don't think I bought anything else. A ticket to any other show except for that NXT show. But then front row in Dallas, the NXT Takeover Dallas was amazing. Finn Balor came out, Texas Chainsaw Massacre with a chainsaw on the mask. It was so much fun. But front row in Dallas, because I knew what happened is, they give you the better seat based on when you log in. The first order gets the best seat. So I knew that. I knew in Dallas I had to
recharge the computer and just the first one to buy it.
In California, I sat for days deciding. So in Dallas, I was like, I got the order in early, and I think the last year of the travel package, it might have been $6,000, and we're up to 5 nights now.
Okay.
For NXT.
6,000 for WrestleMania 32.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure. Some years I did friends and family. So in like 2019 at MetLife, I didn't do travel package. I'm thinking Orlando, I did travel package.
Orlando was 33, right?
Yeah. I think that was the last year I did travel package, and that might have been about $6,000.
Okay.
But it included a lot more than the California one.
Still, compared to today, amazing.
It's crazy, yeah.
With On Location.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
With On Location, the most recent one in, where was this? We were just in Vegas.
Yeah.
The most.
But let me first talk about it later. We're going to follow with your WrestleMania attendance. So WrestleMania 34, New Orleans, you were there too?
Yeah. So the first one, WrestleMania 30, we talked about ending the streak. but it was insane. Getting in was a crush of people. It was really, really bad getting into the Superdome. And then that was one when Hulk Hogan famously called it the Silverdome. But it was amazing. And then besides the Undertaker match it was like Daniel Bryan versus the Authority. Yeah. And I didn't like Daniel Bryan, but by the end of the night I was doing Yes Chance with everyone else. I think I wore an Authority t-shirt into that show.
On 34 you had the Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns match.
Yeah.
All the 6 F5s. The crowd hated the match. Yeah. No one wanted to see no Brock nor Roman the champion.
But that was the first one I did not go to with my son. My son and I went to 6 WrestleManias, and I think that now I went to New Orleans without my son, so we got to stay out later.
Do you remember what price was for the on-location package?
Travel package. $5,000. So it wasn't terrible. Going back to New Orleans with my son, that our third WrestleMania, I had hired a babysitter so we can go to Hall of Fame and then go out in New Orleans afterwards. We had so much fun at Access that I blew off the babysitter, I blew off Hall of Fame, and we just kept rebuying Access and just kept coming back into that convention center. We just spent the entire weekend in the New Orleans Convention Center meeting as many wrestlers as we could and watching those NXT matches. And that's kind of when I started falling in love with wrestling.
Right. And then 2019, WrestleMania 35, you went back to the MetLife Stadium.
MetLife, and that was it was a different stadium. The other one was Giant Stadium. I think I called it MetLife. It was Giant Stadium in 2013, which was torn down, and now it was MetLife Stadium.
So there you saw the first ever women's WrestleMania main event, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, and Charlotte Flair. Was that really,
it was
emotional?
Amazing. It was amazing to see Becky win, both belts, right? That's when she became Becky 2 belts, right? I will say, I'm pretty sure I saw that match. I will say that for the most part, the women's match became my bathroom break, not the Triple H or Undertaker match.
Okay.
And it's no disrespect to women's wrestling. It's just that you gotta go sometime.
Sorry, it was Triple H against Batista, not the Undertaker.
No. In Miami, I said I was in the bathroom in the merchandise stand.
Yeah.
So in the future, I missed a lot of Ronda Rousey because I chose those matches to.
She wasn't that great though.
Yeah, but I chose those matches to go to the merch stand, and no disrespect to women's wrestling, it was just that you have to go sometime. So it was a good flag for me. I'm like, like a clue to go.
So next year, 2020, WrestleMania was gonna be,
Back
I think,
in
in Orlando. In Orlando, I think it was gonna be. But the COVID.
So COVID.
Tampa.
In Tampa, yeah, Tampa.
COVID. It was supposed to be in 2020. It was supposed to be Tampa, and 2021 was supposed to be Los Angeles.
But it was in Tampa.
No. WrestleMania was supposed to be Los Angeles. The one that got canceled. No, I had hotel rooms in Tampa. It was supposed to be Tampa and then Los Angeles.
Yep.
And I was gonna go to Tampa. The way I'm remembering it is, I had hotel rooms in Tampa that I canceled, but it was on the first night of Passover, and I wasn't gonna go because, and I think it was maybe the following year. That I wasn't going to go. Yeah, so April of 20, I was going to go to Tampa, but in 21, I was not going to go to Los Angeles because it was on the first night of Passover.
Okay.
So, but then Tampa got canceled, and then we had to watch on TV.
And 37 was like, the stadium was not full. It was like third part of the stadium was
right. So then in 2021, we went back to Tampa, but we had social distancing.
Man, that was the WrestleMania that started raining, right?
Oh,
yeah.
I remember that WrestleMania was delayed because of the rain.
I was so miserable. I did not want to go in. And
what did you do in the stadium?
Well, first thing I did was not go into the stadium and go back to like Ale House or Duffy's or something. Because if I had to wait somewhere, I didn't want to wait in the rain. So we delayed entering the stadium for a while, and then we couldn't sit in our seats. We had to sit, line up in the hallways until we can get to our seats. But I don't know what deal Vince McMahon made with the devil, and it cleared up, and we went to our seats.
Man, if Vince McMahon continued a show after Owen Hart's death, he wouldn't even mind to continue a show after the Reign. So
Yeah,
the Reign was not gonna stop Vince McMahon from doing WrestleMania.
but the
you know?
Lightning, they wouldn't have let him.
Uh-huh.
So, but he made a deal with the devil, and it cleared up.
Yeah.
But the way the lights and rigging and the stuff around the stage was set up, there was a waterfall on my seat from the cameras and the lights and everything. It was just drizzling in a waterfall on my seat, and everybody else was sitting down, and I was staring at my seat. I'm like, I can't sit there. It would be like sitting under a hose. And but we had social distancing because of COVID, so I just like opened up some of the other seats and sat there. But that was very interesting. Was that 2 nights? Yeah, they did
2 nights.
They did 2 nights.
Yeah. They started doing 2 nights in 2020.
Yeah, because of
the
social distancing, they needed to sell us. They needed to be able to sell the tickets twice.
Yeah, that's right. And
then we saw Bianca Belair win her
Yeah.
WrestleMania match, and we've been watching her since her training in NXT days. So I was very happy for Bianca.
Okay, and that's after the COVID. You started feeling that the prices were going up and up and up and up and up.
That ticket cost me a lot of money, and I think I accidentally bought a 1-night ticket. I thought I bought a 2-night ticket, and it was a 1-night ticket. So
Okay.
that was a whole mess. And then was the next year Dallas?
Yeah, Dallas. That's where we met.
Yeah, that's where we met.
In WrestleMania Dallas.
And that was
thanks
instead
to Charlie Parra.
Yeah.
Shout out to him.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be LA, but California was so shut down, and Texas and Florida were a little bit more open. So and that was a good. I liked that 2 nights was fine. I don't like the 2-night format. I don't feel it's WrestleMania. I feel like the first night is the go-home show before WrestleMania.
Yeah, looks like the trailer, the night 1 and the night 2 is the real.
Dallas was fine. I felt like I got 2 main events, but LA the next year, it was like the winner of the Saturday night determined the Sunday night.
No, that was 40, WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia. Which was the winner of the night 1. We determined the stipulation of the night 2.
Yeah, so like it was feeling like a go-home show. Tampa and Dallas, I felt okay with the 2 nights.
Yeah.
LA and Philly, I just felt like the night 1 was to promote night 2.
Okay, and the last one was in Las Vegas, right? In the Allegiant Stadium. You were there too.
Yeah, it was boring. Was it boring?
Well, for me, it was like an underwhelming WrestleMania, especially with the road to WrestleMania, the decisions, especially the main
Everybody's
event.
expecting The Rock.
Huh?
Everyone was
Rock.
expecting The Rock to come.
John Cena turned heel thanks to The Rock because he sold his soul, okay? So you have WrestleMania, the biggest stage. Here comes Travis Scott, okay?
Why?
And what the fuck is The Rock?
Well, Travis Scott.
We were all thinking, where is The Rock?
Other WrestleManias, when they had either Kid Rock or Flo Rida, they did like they did a song as like almost like an intermission.
Yeah.
Like that's what they should have done with Travis Scott.
No, they should have done a rap song with Travis Scott and John Cena. That would be great.
Yeah, they should have sang a song.
Yeah.
Like that's what Kid Rock did. That's what Flo Rida did.
Pitbull.
That's what I think Eminem in New Orleans.
Pitbull was in Orlando.
Yeah.
Pitbull in Orlando. Was it Pitbull or Flo Rida? It was Give Me the Green Light.
That was WrestleMania 33 in Orlando.
Oh, I remember.
And Florida was in 28.
Yeah, I was dancing a green light. I was dancing around the whole stadium. The last one I'm like, the 2-night WrestleMania doesn't do it for me.
And can you tell us which has been the most expensive on location ticket you ever spent in a wrestling show?
So if you looked at the price list,
I think Las Vegas was the most expensive one, right? It was crazy.
If you wanted to sit in the front row, if the travel package in the front row, and they had about 20 of them that they sold because they sold the front row of Raw and SmackDown, and that gave you some incredible things like you got to be a timekeeper for a match.
Oh yeah, the green t-shirt guy got the timekeeper.
They got on
their own entrance
on
too,
Saturday
right?
morning when the stadium was empty. They got to do entrances, whichever wrestler they wanted. They got to do an entrance, and then each night before WrestleMania, they got to walk in with some of the commentary team. But that package was over $50K.
$50K.
Over $50K.
Crazy.
I spent.
And the same package like 10 years ago was like what, $6K, $7K?
I mean, you didn't get the timekeeper and the
but
walk in, but that first package that I got for $3,500, I felt gave me a lot more because it gave you all the other events.
Yeah.
My package this year with On Location was the 4th row on the entrance ramp. WrestleMania 2 nights, no other shows. So no other shows, just 2 nights of WrestleMania. Before WrestleMania, you got cocktails and hors d'oeuvres in a suite. Very nice. I could take it or leave it. Yeah. We got to meet you get some meet and greets. They gave us a bunch of wrestlers that were fired the next day. Shayna Baszler and Shotzi Blackheart. I was so mad. And we did get to go to Topgolf. There's always one in the travel package. There's always one experience because you're traveling to a city. So when I told you that California package for $3,500, you know what I left out? We went to a winery.
Oh.
We got to crush grapes and spend the day at a winery with Ric Flair and Sergeant Slaughter.
Holy shit. That's worth it, right?
Stuart and Gus talked to Ric Flair at lunch for 45 minutes. They sat down with Ric Flair, had lunch with him for 45 minutes.
In a winery?
In a winery. I missed it. I was outside with David playing.
Striling, profiling.
Yeah. David and I were just playing in the winery, and then we saw Sergeant Slaughter, and we talked to Sergeant Slaughter for a little while. It was $3,500. I left out that part.
Do you remember your Los Angeles experience?
Los Angeles, Stuart and I went to the Mattel factory.
Okay.
And we got to see all the different action figures and how they were made. Jimmy Hart was there. A bunch of other wrestlers were there. Mustafa Ali, Dana Brooke. There's a bunch more. And it was a lot of fun.
And in Philly?
Do you know where I went?
You went to the brewery that makes
Stone Cold Brewery.
Stone Cold Brewery. How was that?
What
was that?
Because they gave you 2 choices. You
could go to the Mattel factory or the Stone Cold Brewery, and everybody went to the brewery because they thought Stone Cold would be there.
We're going to Stone Cold Brewery. It's got to be Stone Cold that's going to be there. It was like Gallows and Anderson.
Yeah, Gallows and Anderson.
I'm like, where's Stone Cold?
You were expecting a bald guy. Well, a bald guy to appear, right?
We had a blast. So in Brooklyn for SummerSlam, we went to Cody Island, the amusement park, and Kurt Angle was there and Lita. Mm-hmm. So after the meet and greet with Kurt Angle and Lita, they gave us passes. You can go on, like for 2 hours, you can go on any ride you want. So I went to go on a ride, and then the person behind me taps me on the shoulder and says, "Would you sit with me?" I say, "Sure." So I sit with Lita on the roller coaster, and I didn't know Lita from back in the day, but I knew who she was because we just had the meet and greet with her. And so after we go on the roller coaster, she says, "What ride do you want to do next?" And I said, "How about that one?" And I spent. Me, Stuart, and Lita spent 2 hours together riding amusement park rides.
Amazing.
What else was happening? So New Orleans travel package, Dallas travel package.
Yeah.
The front row seats I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
We went to a dude ranch and rode horses with Tatanka.
Wow.
Hillbilly Jim and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
Wow. Crazy. And in WrestleMania 40, Philadelphia?
With On Location, we didn't do those things.
Well, we went to didn't we do like an ECW thing?
To the ECW arena, right?
Tour of the ECW arena.
Yeah. Did we even do that?
Yeah. And then we were supposed to meet the Dudley boys, but they only let the Dudley boys go with those front row guys.
Right.
They forgot about us, and we didn't meet the Dudley boys. So I forget what New Orleans did with the travel package. Oh, New Orleans with the travel package. We went to where they made the Mardi Gras floats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And who was there?
Natalia and Mark Henry.
Natalia and Mark Henry with the Mardi Gras floats.
My famous picture.
And then, so New Orleans, and then so California, and then New Orleans, and then California, and then Dallas was the dude ranch, and then Orlando was NXT. We got an NXT tour.
And back in the day, in the 80s, do you have like a VIP experience?
No. You
okay. Now, watching wrestling.
I will say, my older brother at his bar mitzvah, my mom hired classy Freddie Blassie to come and give autographs.
Wow. That's great. So you as a wrestling fan, the evolution of wrestling, from the 80s to nowadays, what's the thing that gets you the most about wrestling, because in the 80s was more cartoonish, more childish. Nowadays, well, it's a product for the kids too, but there's more priority in the wrestling in-ring performance, right? So could you tell us, what you can feel about the evolution of wrestling?
I don't think it's changed all that much. Certainly the in-ring performance, is amazing feats of strength and acrobatics, but I don't think the essence changed that much. Maybe the matches are shorter. Mm-hmm. It's still good versus evil. You still need a reason to fight. Like when there's a match with no reason to fight, no storyline behind it, nothing at stake, it's less interesting. Even if it's pride, even if people are just insulting each other, there's a good reason to fight. But you're always looking for good versus evil. You're always looking for a reason to fight. You're always incorporating from the theater, right? Romance, drama, action, and comedy. So you always see that. You always see a good balance of shows, national pride, playing into stereotypes. The more things change, the more things are the same. We've seen these things over and over again. And what's amazing is that they can still make it fresh and new. But there's so many times where I see something and it reminds me of something else. And that's what doing my own promotion now, and we didn't even talk about that, but you can tell your friends.
I wanted to talk about just finally when we finish this. Yeah.
But the most amazing thing about my promotion is when I'm in the creative meetings and I have a legend. I like to have a legend at every show, whether it's Ricky Morton, Bruce the Barber Beefcake, Jake the Snake, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Jimmy Hart. But sometimes when we get stuck on creative and one of the legends will throw something out, or if I have a bad booking angle, one of the legends will actually correct me. And it's amazing the wealth of knowledge and experience that these guys have.
Yeah, that's great. So, finally, let's talk about BRCW, your promotion, Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. You're the CEO, you're the Vice Executive President. So when did it started, and what's your goal with that promotion?
May of 2022, and the goal is to have a fun, family-friendly event, a happening, something that the community is looking forward to. That's why I named it Boca Raton, that's the city I live in. I wanted it to be a family-friendly community event, something that people look forward to. But then also, I'm trying to create the streaming and YouTube so that if you don't live here, you can experience it as well through streaming and online. And then also we have the Spanish commentary, so that way I have another audience of Spanish-speaking people. Maybe, and I don't know, there might not be as much content with all the other promotions out there. So maybe a way that people can see wrestlers that they wouldn't normally. That's why we brought in and hired Ricardo Rodriguez to be our commentator. I was a big fan of him when he was Alberto Del Rio's personal ring announcer. He could actually wrestle. We had a great match with him versus Alan S2S Martinez, and I have an idea for next year if we want to get Ricardo Rodriguez in a match either against or with our American commentator, Matt Raywald. So we have the two commentary tables. I think it would be fun for these guys to either face each other or work together, maybe face our tag team champions. So that's something we could play with in the future. I love the creative outlet it gives me when I create these stories. I actually created my first character. And I don't like taking the credit for it. People really like my show, and I got a national reputation. But it's my team and the talent that I hire, and the creative and the production people that I hire that make me look good as a promoter. Because I'll tell you, watching wrestling and thinking you could be a promoter, it's not as easy. Booking ain't easy.
Is it really difficult to promote it? Creating meetings, production, everything.
All of it. Dealing with the talent, and they have different agendas and priorities. They want to portray themselves in the best condition that they want. So dealing with their needs, and they could they're all a little bit different, and they're all entitled to their opinion and what they think they have to offer. But that some of them may have different creative direction. Certainly always dealing with who's going to win and who's going to go over can be challenging. I'm trying to create a spotlight for both our students. We have a training school in Pompano Beach, Florida, CCW Coastal Championship Wrestling Training School.
With Gangrel, right?
Gangrel is our head trainer. If you remember when we talked in California, and you expressed that you might want to train. We offered you a pretty good.
Firstly, I thought it was not real, but you have told it to me more than once. So yeah.
Not me, but my partner offered Falbak a 6-month contract when he was done training. Two shows a week for 6 months.
Never heard from him.
I mean,
Ghosted.
So
Man, that was in LA, WrestleMania 39. After the show, we were in the hotel.
he
was really drunk, telling me about that proposal. So I was like, I don't know if it's real or not.
My partner was drunk off his
Drunk as fuck. Yeah.
and I understand why you would think he was.
I was like, what the hell is going on here?
He was kidding, but I told him you were my friend, and he was trying to, do the right thing by my friend. So anyway, so we have this. So I want to promote my students. Mm-hmm. I also want to promote my friends who are professional wrestlers who may be trying to get to or back to a major promotion. And I'm trying to have fun.
Yeah. So you have been with WWE Superstars, TNA, AEW,
Ring of Honor, MLW.
Yeah.
All of them.
The Monster Factory. What's QT Marshall's school in Georgia? That's the Monster Factory.
That's a Nightmare Factory.
The Nightmare Factory. The Nightmare Factory that QT Marshall runs. Yeah,
that's great, Matthew. So thank you very much for having me here. It was a pleasure to talk with you about wrestling. Is there anywhere my followers can follow you, your stories, and your promotion, BRCW?
So the website is BocaRatonWrestling.com, or you can go to BRCW.com. I have both the initials. BRCW Florida on a lot of our socials. And on YouTube, we have Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, and we also have BRCW en Español. Mm-hmm. So your followers are all invited to watch our shows in Spanish. It's the Spanish commentary. Our ring announcer, I got to ask you about that. We have the ring announcer. That's in English, and we're not putting subtitles on for the ring announcer. Do you think I need to put subtitles on for the?
I would say probably, yeah. I don't think that's necessary. Yeah. But if you add it, it's great. But if not, I think there's no problem, right? Yeah. Because it's only the announcement.
Yeah. So I'm right now we're not doing it. I want to get my production value up, and I want to get the shows up constantly. And then I think the next step is twofold: is subtitles for the ring announcer, subtitles for the backstage promos, and possibly one day a Spanish language interviewer backstage. But the problem is that the responses from the wrestlers are going to be in English. So maybe.
Do you think we need a timekeeper in Spanish?
Who knows? Maybe
a Spanish bell.
Yeah. Ay.
You have here a great candidate. So yeah, it's been great to be here with you. You can follow BRCW's social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And if they want to follow you up on your wrestling stories, do you have your Instagram?
And yeah, my personal Instagram is at Matthew Maschler. That's my name. On Twitter, I have Matthew Maschler and Matt Maschler. It's a long story why I have two, and I don't know the difference between them. I know the Miz follows one of them. That's the one I like.
And your social media is, Neil?
My social media Instagram is at Neil the Heel.
Neil the Heel. Yeah. Okay.
Do you have El Hombre Malo in Espanol?
Neil El Hombre Malo.
Neil El Hombre Malo. That was the name. That was the name that Charlie Parra gave him.
Nice.
We talked about Charlie Parra before. He's a friend of ours. We met him on the Jericho Cruise and back in 2022 in Dallas. We were with Charlie when Charlie and Falbak. I had thought it was coincidental and natural that the two of them looked at each other and recognized each other.
It was so natural, yeah.
Apparently, I learned that they had pre-arranged the meeting, but it was still.
But it was our first time ever meeting in person.
First time ever meeting in person.
Via social media, but we never met in person.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool.
Yeah. And then Falbak and I, we've been friends ever since.
Yeah. So that's great. Again, a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for listening to us. It's been a great podcast, and I hope to see you again next time.
Absolutely.
Hasta la próxima, fanáticos del wrestling. Ya no estamos. Chao, chao.
You know what time it is. You know whose time it is. You know what time it is. Matthew Mania, the time is his. You know what time it is. You know whose time it is. You know what time it is.